Papa?
In the shadows of the city, love finds the ruthless.
Sir. The rain hammered the Brooklyn sidewalks like it was trying to wash the city clean. Lorenzo Moretti stepped out of the matte black Escalade at the corner of Flatbush and 7th, collar up against the downpour, his two shadows Marco and Nico flanking him without a word. He was there for a quick drop, cash for silence from a bartender who'd overheard too much, routine, controlled, until a small, soaked figure darted from the awning of the corner bodega straight toward him. "Papa!" The voice was high, bright, cutting through the storm. A 6-year-old girl in a bright yellow raincoat stopped inches from his boots, hood fallen back, dark curls plastered to her cheeks. Her brown eyes, huge, trusting, locked on his face like she'd been waiting years to find him. "Papa, will you walk me to school tomorrow?" "Please. Mommy says the big kids are mean, but if you're with me they won't be." Lorenzo's breath caught hard in his chest. The word Papa landed like a fist he hadn't seen coming. Marco's hand twitched toward his jacket. Nico shifted weight. Lorenzo lifted one palm stop, and they froze. The girl tilted her head, waiting, completely unafraid of the 3 large men in black coats standing in the rain like statues. Behind her, the bodega door swung open. "Ava! Get back here right now!" A woman hurried out, umbrella forgotten, dark hair whipping across her face. Elena Torres. The name hit him before the recognition did. 7 years ago, one night in a hotel room on the Upper West Side after 2, sir. Much whiskey and too many truths. She'd left before dawn. No note, no trace. Until now, Elena's gaze snapped from her daughter to Lorenzo. Color drained from her cheeks so fast it looked painful. She scooped Ava up, raincoat dripping, and pressed the girl's face to her shoulder. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, voice thin. She's got an imagination. She doesn't mean anything by it." But her eyes, storm gray, the same ones he remembered staring up at him in candlelight, betrayed her. They were pleading. "Don't ask. Don't push." Ava wriggled, pointing one small finger at Lorenzo. "But Mommy, he looks just like the picture in your drawer. The one you kiss goodnight sometimes." Elena's arms tightened so hard Ava squeaked. Lorenzo felt the ground shift under him. A picture, kissed goodnight. His pulse roared in his ears. He took one step forward, rain sliding off the brim of his cap. His voice came out lower than he intended, almost gentle. "What school, kid?" Ava's face lit up despite her mother's grip. "PS 321, the one with the blue doors." Elena shook her head fast. "We're fine. Really. We're going home." She turned, but Ava kept staring over her shoulder, hopeful. Lorenzo watched them disappear around the corner. Elena's steps hurried, protective. He stood there long after they were gone, rain soaking through his coat, the word Papa looping in his skull like a warning shot. By the time he slid into the back of the Escalade, his mind was already moving pieces. Marco. Find, sir. Out everything about Elena Torres. Address, work, kid's birth certificate. Quietly. Marco nodded once. Nico drove in silence. That night in his Tribeca loft, Lorenzo poured bourbon he didn't drink. He opened the file his people had pulled in under 2 hours. Birth certificate. Ava Marie Torres. Father, unknown. Date, 7 months after that night in the hotel. Hospital records showed Elena alone in labor, no visitors. School enrollment, PS 321, 1st grade. Mother listed as sole guardian. No arrests, no debts, no red flags. Clean, ordinary. Everything he wasn't. He stared at the attached photo Elena at a parent-teacher night, Ava on her hip, both smiling. Ava's smile was his. The dimple in the left cheek. The slight tilt of the head when she laughed. He set the glass down untouched. Morning came gray and damp. Lorenzo arrived at PS 321 40 minutes early, parked across the street in a nondescript sedan instead of the Escalade. No suit today, dark hoodie, jeans, baseball cap pulled low. He leaned against a mailbox, watching parents herd kids through the gates. His pulse hadn't settled since last night. Ava saw him first. She broke from Elena's hand and sprinted across the crosswalk, yellow backpack bouncing. "Papa, you came!" She slammed into his legs, hugging his knee like he belonged there. Elena froze mid-step, eyes wide with something between fury and terror. She crossed the street fast, voice low and shaking. "What are you doing here?" Lorenzo crouched to Ava's, "Sir." level, meeting her bright gaze. "I told you I'd walk you in, didn't I?" Ava beamed, slipping her small hand into his much larger one. Elena's breath hitched. She looked ready to grab her daughter and run, but Ava was already tugging him toward the gate. "Come on, Papa, I'll show you my cubby." They walked together, Lorenzo on one side, Elena on the other, tension crackling between them like live wire. Kids streamed past, teachers called names, the normal chaos of a school morning, but for Lorenzo it felt like stepping onto a minefield. Every step closer to the blue doors felt like crossing a line he could never uncross. At the entrance, Ava let go, spun, and threw her arms around his waist. "Thank you, Papa." Then she darted inside, waving once before disappearing down the hall. Silence fell between the two adults standing on the sidewalk. Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. "You can't do this. You don't get to walk in after 7 years and play daddy." Lorenzo turned to her, raindrops catching in his lashes. "Then tell me she's not mine." Elena's jaw trembled. She looked away, toward the school, toward the life she'd built without him. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. "She's yours, but that doesn't mean you belong here." He exhaled, the sound rough. "Maybe not. But I'm not leaving until we figure this out." Elena met his eyes, then anger, fear, and something softer warring in the gray. "Figure out, Lorenzo, how to drag us into your world, or how to walk away, sir." Again? He had no answer. Not yet, but as the final bell rang and the doors closed, he knew one thing for certain. The ruthless man who controlled half the city's shadows had just been disarmed by a 6-year-old girl and a single word. Elena didn't speak on the walk back to her brownstone 3 blocks away. The morning air was crisp, carrying the smell of fresh bagels from the corner deli and exhaust from passing buses. Ava had already disappeared into the school's colorful hallway, her yellow courier backpack vanishing around the corner like a promise Lorenzo wasn't sure he could keep. Now it was just the two of them on the sidewalk. Footsteps mismatched his, long and deliberate, hers quick and angry. At her stoop, Elena stopped, keys already in hand. She turned to face him, gray eyes blazing under the weak sunlight filtering through the overcast sky. "You think showing up like some hero fixes 7 years?" Her voice stayed low, mindful of Mabers, but the tremor in it betrayed everything. "You don't get to decide you're in her life because she called you Papa once." Lorenzo kept his hands in his pockets, shoulders squared against the chill. "I'm not deciding anything, she did." He nodded toward the school behind them. "She looked at me like she already knew me. You gonna tell me that's coincidence?" Elena's laugh was sharp, humorless. "Kids see what they want to see. She found an old photo I never threw out. That's all." She climbed the first step, putting distance between them. "Go, sir. Back to whatever empire you're running. We've been fine without you." He didn't move. "Fine isn't the same as safe, Elena." The words came out quieter than he meant, almost a confession. She froze, back to him. He took one step closer. "I know the kind of people who watch men like me. If word gets out there's a kid, they'll use her, or you, to get to me." She spun around so fast her hair whipped across her cheek. "And whose fault is that?" Her voice cracked on the last word. Tears shimmered but didn't fall. "I left because I saw what happened to people close to you. Your cousin, your driver. I wasn't going to let my baby become collateral." The accusation landed heavy. Lorenzo felt it in his chest like an old wound reopening. He looked away first, jaw working. "I never wanted that for anyone. Least of all you." When his eyes returned to hers, they were raw. "But I'm here now, and I'm not walking away from my daughter." Elena stared at him for a long beat, breathing shallow. Then she turned and unlocked the door without another word. She didn't slam it. She didn't invite him in. She just left it open enough for him to follow if he chose. Inside, the narrow hallway smelled of coffee and lavender laundry detergent. Toys were scattered on the living room rug. A stuffed giraffe missing one eye. Crayons in a coffee can. Elena dropped her keys on the hall table and crossed her arms. 5 minutes, then you leave." Lorenzo stepped inside, closing the door softly behind him. "Sir." The space felt too small for the weight of the moment. He glanced at the framed photos on the mantel, mostly Ava. First steps, first tooth, kindergarten graduation. One caught his eye. Elena holding newborn Ava in the hospital, exhausted but glowing. No man in the picture. Just them. He looked back at Elena. "Tell me about her." She hesitated, then sighed and leaned against the kitchen doorway. She's smart, stubborn, loves dinosaurs and hates broccoli. She asks about her dad sometimes. I told her he had to go away for work. Her voice softened. She stopped asking last year. Started drawing pictures of us instead. Just the two of us. Lorenzo nodded slowly. She called me Papa like it wasn't a question. Elena's eyes glistened, because in her head, you're the dad who shows up. The one who's strong enough to scare the bullies. She wiped at her cheek with the back of her hand. She doesn't know what strong really costs. Silence stretched. Lorenzo moved to the couch, but didn't sit. He stood with his hands loose at his sides, like he was afraid to touch anything. I want to know her, Elena. Not own her. Not control her. Just know her. Elena studied him, the faint lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 7 years ago, the way his shoulders carried tension like armor. And what happens when your world comes knocking? When someone decides Ava's a lever they can pull. I protect what's mine. The words were quiet, certain. Always have. She shook her head. That's, sir, exactly what scares me. They stood there, two people who'd once shared a bed and a night of reckless honesty, now separated by a child and a lifetime of choices. Elena finally spoke again. One supervised visit. Tomorrow after school. Coffee shop on 5th, public place. You talk to her. You don't promise anything you can't keep. And if I say stop, you stop. Lorenzo exhaled, relief and fear twisting together. Deal. She nodded once, sharp. Now go, before she gets out at 3 and sees you here. He turned for the door, paused with his hand on the knob. Thank you. It came out rough, almost inaudible. Elena didn't answer. She just watched him leave, the door clicking shut behind him like the end of a chapter she'd never meant to reopen. That afternoon Lorenzo sat in his Tribeca office, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the Hudson glittering under pale sunlight. His consigliere, Polly, waited across the desk, tablet in hand. Everything checks out. No flags on Torres or the kid. Clean record. But boss, you sure about this? Lorenzo stared at the city without seeing it. Number, but I'm doing it anyway. Polly hesitated. Words are already moving. People notice when you start acting different. Different makes you vulnerable. Lorenzo's gaze hardened. Then make sure no one touches them. Double the eyes on her block. Quietly. Polly nodded and left. Alone, Lorenzo pulled out his phone and opened the photo Elena had never meant for him to see, the one Ava had found. Him. Younger, sir. Smiling in a way he barely recognized. He traced the edge of the screen with his thumb. Tomorrow he'd meet his daughter again, officially, and whatever came after, he'd face it. For the first time in years, not just for power. For something that actually mattered. The coffee shop on 5th Avenue smelled of roasted beans and cinnamon, the kind of place where moms in yoga pants met for hurried catch-ups and freelancers tapped away on laptops. Lorenzo arrived 10 minutes early, choosing a corner table near the window, but away from the door-old habit. He wore a charcoal sweater over a black shirt, sleeves pushed to the elbows, trying to look less like the man who controlled shipping lanes and more like someone who belonged in a Brooklyn playground. His hands rested flat on the scarred wood table, fingers still, but his pulse betrayed him. Elena walked in at exactly 3:15, Ava's hand in hers. The girl spotted him instantly and broke free, running the last few steps to throw her arms around his waist.
Papa, you're here again.
Her voice carried across the room. A few heads turned. Lorenzo knelt, letting her hug him, his large hands careful on her small back. Hey kiddo, how was school? Awesome. We made paper airplanes and mine flew the farthest. Ava beamed, climbing onto the chair beside him like she'd done it 100 times. Elena approached slower, her gray eyes scanning the room before settling on him. She slid into the seat opposite, coat still on, purse clutched in, sir. Her lap like a shield. 1 hour, she said quietly. That's it. Lorenzo nodded once. He ordered hot chocolate for Ava, with extra marshmallows and black coffee for himself and Elena. When the drinks arrived, Ava dove in, chocolate mustache forming instantly. Lorenzo watched her with something close to awe, the way she licked foam from her lip, the way her curls bounced when she laughed at her own jokes. Elena sipped her coffee, eyes never leaving them. So, Ava said, turning to him with serious brown eyes, are you gonna pick me up every day now? Lorenzo glanced at Elena. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't interrupt. He looked back at Ava. I'd like that. If your mom says it's okay. Ava spun toward Elena. Mommy, please, he's really nice. And tall. He can reach the high shelves in art class. Elena's lips twitched, almost a smile, before she caught herself. We'll talk about it, baby. The hour passed in small, careful pieces. Ava told stories about her teacher, Mrs. Ramirez, her best friend Lila, who could do cartwheels, the class hamster named Pickles who escaped last week. Lorenzo listened like every word was evidence in a case he was desperate to win. He asked gentle questions. What's your favorite color? Purple. Do you like dinosaurs? Yes, especially the ones with feathers. When she asked about him, he kept it light. I work with boats sometimes. Big ones that carry stuff across the ocean. Ava's eyes widened. Like pirates? Lorenzo chuckled, low and warm. No, sir. Pirates. Just deliveries. Elena watched every exchange, her posture rigid at first, then slowly easing. When Ava spilled hot chocolate on her sleeve, Lorenzo grabbed napkins without hesitation, dabbing gently while Ava giggled. Elena's fingers loosened on her mug. As the hour wound down, Ava yawned, chocolate smeared and content. Can we do this tomorrow too? Lorenzo looked at Elena. She held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded once. Maybe. We'll see. Outside, the late afternoon light had turned golden despite the clouds. Ava skipped between them, holding both their hands. Lorenzo felt the small fingers in his palm like a lifeline. At the crosswalk, Elena stopped. I'll take her from here. Ava hugged him goodbye, fierce and quick. See you soon, Papa. Then she tugged Elena toward home. Elena lingered a second longer. She likes you, she said quietly. That scares me more than anything. Lorenzo nodded. I know. She turned away, but not before he saw the conflict in her eyes, fear warring with something softer. That evening, Lorenzo sat on the edge of his bed in the Tribeca loft, staring at the city lights. His phone buzzed Polly. Boss, we got chatter. Santini's crew asking questions about a woman in Brooklyn. Single mom, kid in first grade. Lorenzo's grip tightened on the phone. Double the watch on her block. No mistakes. He hung up, heart pounding. The next afternoon he was back at the coffee shop. This time Elena let Ava sit on his lap while she colored. When, sir? Ava asked why he didn't live with them. Elena answered before he could. Papa has a big job, sweetie. But he's here now when we need him. Ava accepted it, satisfied. Lorenzo met Elena's eyes over the girl's head. Gratitude, apology, promise all tangled together. Days turned to a fragile routine. Coffee shop visits became park benches, then walks to the playground. Lorenzo brought books. Ava's favorite was one about a brave knight who protected his family. He read to her in his deep voice, accents and all, while Elena watched from the bench, arms crossed but lips curved. One rainy Tuesday, Ava fell asleep against his chest during story time. Eleanor reached to take her, but Lorenzo shook his head. Let her stay. He carried Ava the 3 blocks home, Elena walking beside him under one umbrella. At the brownstone door, Elena took her daughter gently. Their hands brushed. Neither pulled away immediately. Inside, Elena laid Ava on the couch and turned to him. You're good with her. Her voice was soft, unguarded for the first time. Lorenzo stood in the narrow hallway, rain dripping from his coat. I want to be good for both of you. Elena stepped closer. I'm trying to believe that. She didn't invite him to stay, but she didn't ask him to leave either. They stood there, inches apart, the sound of rain on the windows filling the silence. Lorenzo lifted a hand, brushed a wet strand of hair from her cheek. Elena didn't flinch. Her breath caught. I never wanted to hurt you, he said, sir. Back then. Or now. Elena's eyes searched his. Then don't disappear again. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was close. He left soon after, but the air between them had shifted. Warmer, more dangerous. That night Elena sat on the edge of Ava's bed, watching her sleep. She touched the photo on the nightstand, the one of Lorenzo, young and smiling. Her thumb traced his jaw. Then she whispered to the dark room, What am I doing? Across the city, Lorenzo stood on his terrace, city lights blurring in the rain. He pulled out his phone and texted Elena one line. Tomorrow? Same time? Her reply came after a long minute. Yes. The days settled into something that felt dangerously close to normal. Lorenzo showed up every afternoon at the coffee shop or the playground on 5th. Always early, always alone. No bodyguards trailing in plain sight, though. He'd quietly doubled the discreet coverage on Elena's block and the school perimeter. Ava began expecting him, saving the best crayon drawings for Papa, and asking if he could come to the class pet show next week. Elena let it happen, one careful step at a time, her guard lowering inch by inch. One Thursday after school, the sky was low and gray, threatening rain that never came. Ava had soccer practice at the park field near Prospect Park, her first real game of the season. Elena stood on the sideline in a hoodie and jeans, arms crossed against the chill, watching her daughter chase the ball with fierce determination. Lorenzo arrived, sir, quietly, hands in his pockets, and stopped beside Elena without a word. She didn't flinch at his presence anymore. Instead, she shifted slightly, making room for him. "She's fast," he said, nodding toward Ava as the girl stole the ball and dribbled past two bigger kids. Elena's lips curved. "She gets that from me. Stubborn, too." A pause. "You played street ball in Queens when I was her age. No uniforms. Just concrete and attitude." He glanced at her sideways. "Never thought I'd be watching my kid in shin guards and cleats." Elena's breath caught at the words "my kid." She didn't correct him. Instead, she watched Ava score, the girl's arms shooting up in victory, teammates piling on her in a messy hug. When the whistle blew for halftime, Ava sprinted over, sweaty and beaming. "Papa, did you see? I scored." She launched herself at him. Lorenzo caught her easily, lifting her so her muddy cleats dangled above the grass. "I saw. You're a beast out there." He set her down gently, brushing dirt from her cheek. "Go get some water. We'll talk strategy after." Ava ran off toward the team bench. Elena turned to him, voice low. "Strategy?" He shrugged, almost sheepish. "Figured I could teach her a few moves. Nothing fancy, just how to read the field." Elena studied him the way his eyes tracked Ava even now, the quiet pride in his posture. "You're really doing this," she said softly. "Not just showing up, staying." Lorenzo met her gaze. "I told you, I'm not going anywhere." His voice, sir, dropped. "Unless you tell me to." She looked away, toward the field where Ava was laughing with her friends. "I'm scared, Lorenzo. Not just of your enemies, of this." She gestured between them, "of letting you in and watching it all fall apart again." He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the faint cedar of his cologne mixed with the fresh-cut grass. "Then let me prove it, one day at a time." That evening, after Ava was bathed and in pajamas, Elena made grilled cheese in the tiny kitchen while Lorenzo sat at the table helping Ava with her spelling words. The scene felt impossibly domestic, his large frame hunched over a first-grade worksheet, patiently sounding out, because while Ava chewed the end of her pencil, Elena watched from the stove, spatula in hand. When the sandwiches were ready, she set 3 plates down. Ava dove in immediately. Lorenzo waited until Elena sat, then took a bite, chewing slowly like he was tasting something rare. "Good?" Elena asked. "Best I've had in years." He meant more than the food. She felt it. After Ava went to bed, storybook read by Lorenzo, lights out at 8, Elena poured 2 glasses of red wine she kept for rare quiet nights. They sat on the couch, not touching, the TV muted on some nature documentary neither watched. "I talked to my lawyer today," Lorenzo said after a long silence, quietly, "about custody, visitation, whatever you want it to look like." Elena's fingers tightened on the stem of her glass. "I don't want, sir, lawyers, Lorenzo. I want to know you're not going to vanish when things get hard." He set his glass down and turned to face her fully. "I vanished once because I thought it was safer for you. I was wrong." His voice roughened. "I won't make that mistake again." She searched his face, the faint scar along his jaw, the lines carved by years of decisions she'd never fully understood. "What happens when someone comes for you? For us?" He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers brushed hers, then laced through them. "I end it. Whatever it takes. Legally, quietly, whatever keeps you both safe." His thumb stroked the back of her hand. "I'm already shifting things. More real estate, less everything else. It's not overnight, but it's happening." Elena exhaled shakily. "You'd do that? Walk away from what you built. For her? He nodded toward the hallway where Ava slept. For you? Yeah, I would. The room felt smaller, warmer. Elena leaned in first just a fraction. Lorenzo met her halfway. Their kiss was slow, careful, like they were remembering how bodies fit together after too long apart. No rush, no desperation. Just the quiet certainty that this time they weren't running. When they pulled back, foreheads resting together, Elena whispered, "One day at a time." Lorenzo smiled against her skin. One day at a time. The next morning Lorenzo drove them to school, Ava in the back singing along to the radio, Elena in the passenger seat watching the city. "Sir, wake up." At the drop-off, Ava hugged them both, then dashed inside. Lorenzo waited until she disappeared through the doors before turning to Elena. "Dinner tonight?" "My place. Nothing fancy. Just us three." Elena hesitated only a second. Okay, that night in his Tribeca loft, vast windows, soft lights, take-out pizza spread on the coffee table. Ava explored every corner, while Elena stood at the glass, looking out at the glittering skyline. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. Lorenzo came up behind her, not touching, just close enough she could feel his warmth. "It's empty without people in it." He paused. "I want it to feel like home. For both of you." Elena turned, eyes meeting his. "We're getting there." Ava called from the living room, "Papa, come see the view from the couch." And they laughed, the sound light and real. But outside, in the shadows Lorenzo had spent years building, the world hadn't forgotten him. A single text lit up his phone as he tucked Ava in later. "Polly, Santini's lieutenant spotted near the school today. Watching. No move yet." Lorenzo stared at the screen, thumb hovering over delete. He looked down the hall where Elena was clearing plates, humming softly. Then he typed back one word: "Handle it." He slipped the phone into his pocket and walked back to them, face calm, heart steady. One day at a time, the winter months arrived in New York with sharp wind and early darkness, but inside Elena's brownstone the lights stayed warm longer each evening. Lorenzo's, sir. Visits had become routine, school pickups turning into homework help at the kitchen table. Then dinners where he cooked simple Italian dishes he'd learned from his grandmother decades ago. Ava called him Papa without hesitation now, the word slipping out as naturally as Mommy. Elena no longer corrected it. She watched instead, heart expanding with every shared glance, every quiet laugh. One December evening, snow dusted the stoop like powdered sugar. Ava was asleep upstairs, her soccer trophy gleaming on the dresser. Elena stood at the kitchen sink rinsing dishes while Lorenzo dried them, sleeves rolled to his elbows, the domestic rhythm feeling both foreign and right. The radio played soft jazz in the background, low enough that the silence between them carried weight. He set the last plate in the rack and turned to her. "I filed the papers today." His voice was steady, but his eyes held something vulnerable. "Custody agreement. Joint. You keep primary. I get weekends and holidays. And whatever else we decide together." Elena dried her hands slowly on a towel, processing. "You didn't have to do that. I wanted to." He stepped closer. "Legal makes it real. Makes it safe for her, for you. No one can question where I stand." She looked up at him, gray eyes searching his dark ones. "And where do you stand with me?" Lorenzo reached out, fingers brushing her wrist, then sliding up to cup her face. "Right here. Wherever you'll let me be." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "I love, sir. You, Elena. Always did. Just took me too long to say it without the world burning around us." Her breath hitched. She leaned into his touch. "I was scared to love you back. Still am sometimes. I know." He pressed his forehead to hers. "But I'm not asking for perfect. Just us. Trying." She closed the distance, kissing him slow and deep, hands sliding up his chest to grip his shirt. When they parted, her voice was a whisper. "Then stay tonight." He stayed. The next morning, Ava woke to find him making pancakes in the kitchen, Elena beside him pouring orange juice. The girl froze in the doorway, then ran forward with a squeal.
"Papa's cooking."
Lorenzo lifted her onto a stool, plating a smiley-face pancake with chocolate chip eyes. Elena watched from across the counter, her smile soft and unguarded. Weeks turned to months. Lorenzo's world shifted in quiet, deliberate ways. He sold off high-risk holdings, redirected crews toward legitimate trucking and real estate management. Polly grumbled, but followed orders. The threats from Santini's remnants, faded arrests, plea deals, distance. Lorenzo's name still carried weight in certain circles, but the shadow it cast no longer reached Elena's doorstep. Spring brought cherry blossoms to Prospect Park. On a Saturday afternoon, the three of them walked the path Sava between them, swinging their hands. She chattered about her upcoming science fair project, a volcano made from baking soda and vinegar. Lorenzo listened intently, asking, "Sir," questions that made her feel important. Elena watched them, heart full. At the pond, Ava ran ahead to feed ducks. Lorenzo stopped, pulling Elena to a bench. He reached into his pocket and took out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. "I've spent years building walls," he said quietly, "thinking that's how you stay alive. You and Ava showed me something else." He opened the box, a simple diamond solitaire. Elegant, nothing flashy. "Marry me, Elena. Not because I'm trying to fix the past, because I want every tomorrow with you both." Tears welled in her eyes. She looked toward Ava, who was laughing as ducks waddled toward her breadcrumbs, then back at him. "Yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, hand shaking just slightly. She pulled him into a kiss, soft, certain, full of everything they'd waited years to say. Ava turned, saw them, and ran back. "What's happening?" Lorenzo knelt, lifting her between them. "Your mom said yes. We're getting married, kiddo." Ava's eyes went huge. "Really? Like a princess wedding?" Elena laughed through tears. "No princesses, just us. Family." Ava threw her arms around both their necks. "Best day ever." That summer they married in a small ceremony at Brooklyn Botanic Garden, cherry blossoms still lingering, close friends only. Ava in a lavender dress scattered petals down the aisle. Elena in ivory lace, simple and radiant. Lorenzo in a charcoal suit, eyes never leaving her. When they exchanged vows, his voice cracked on, "I promise to protect you, sir." Both, always. Her was steady. "I promise to love you through every storm." Afterward they danced under string lights, Ava between them, giggling as Lorenzo spun her. The city hummed beyond the garden walls, but here it was quiet, safe, theirs. Years later, Ava, now taller, fiercer, still called him Papa. She knew the stories, how he'd once been a man feared in shadows, how one rainy night and one brave little girl had changed everything. She wore the same dimple when she smiled, the same stubborn tilt to her chin. Elena and Lorenzo grew older together, gray in his hair, laugh lines around her eyes. They still walked to school on the first day every September, hand in hand with whichever child needed them most. The city changed around them, but they remained steady, scarred, whole. In the end, a single plea, "Papa, walk me to school," hadn't just stunned a ruthless man. It had saved him. If this story of one little girl's courage, a mother's quiet strength, and a father finding his way home touched your heart, hit that like button, drop a comment with the moment that moved you most, and subscribe to Cinematic Mafia Love for more tales of love that defies the darkness. Let's keep believing in second chances together.